Hi, I'm Danielle Perez, an editor at Berkeley, and I'm here to introduce Tom Hunt, debut author of the thriller Killer Choice, which comes out in January. I was immediately pulled into this story when I had it on submission. This thriller is a fun, fast-paced read, but it's also thought-provoking. The premise is enticing and compelling. How far would you go to save the one person you truly love? That's the dilemma the protagonist of this novel has to wrestle with. His pregnant wife is sick, and their only hope is an experimental treatment that costs a lot of money they don't have. An anonymous donor offers to give Gary the money with just one catch. He has to kill someone, no questions asked. Gary is an everyman, someone that we can all relate to, and once he makes his very difficult choice, nothing goes according to plan. And this tense and suspenseful situation just snowballs more and more out of control. Killer Choice has received some wonderful early praise, such as a sharply crafted debut thriller that fans of Harlan Coben will devour, a complex and chilling plot which forces you to consider your own humanity, a lightning-fast ride that will keep you guessing until the end, a one-sit read. When I found out from Tom's agent that he worked in advertising, I must admit I was initially a bit disappointed. Oh, he's going to be some young, slick Wall Street type, I thought to myself. And then when we talked on the phone to discuss the book before I acquired it, I was so pleasantly surprised to find out that he wasn't slick at all. In a good way. But he was from small-town Iowa and was so genuine and thoughtful. Then I found out that he worked in advertising at 375 Hudson Street, the same building as Penguin's offices. And he lived just a few blocks away from me in the East Village. Well, that sealed the deal. Tom had written a terrific, fast-paced thriller with a twisty, complex story that had kept me on the edge of my seat throughout. I just had to acquire this debut novel. And now I'm very pleased to introduce Tom Hunt.
Well, thank you very much, Danielle. It was kind of funny when I found out I was going to be speaking today. The first thing I did was I reached out to my mom. She was a school teacher for a really, really long time, and she just knows a ton of librarians. So I told her to talk to all her friends and, give me some good talking points, some good jokes to tell, and send her off the itinerary and everything. And then she got back to me about a day later, and she was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Talk about whatever you want. It doesn't matter at all what you cover in your speech." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, you're the last person talking right before lunch." So everyone's just going to be thinking about food the entire time. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully there's a few people out there who had a nice big breakfast this morning and can hold out for a bit longer. To begin, I just wanted to kind of echo what everyone else has said up to this point. Libraries and librarians have played a really, really big role in my life. As Danielle mentioned, I'm from a really, really small town in the middle of Iowa. It's a place named Washington, Iowa, and I'll give anyone out there $50 if they've actually heard of it. I don't know about that. I think he's trying to get $50 out of me. And it was a great place to grow up, have a ton of memories, tons of friends. But the one thing about growing up in a town of about 6,000 people that's really, really far from the next major city is there's not a whole heck of a lot to do. But one thing we were blessed with was a really, really nice library. And so I spent a ton of time there growing up. One of my earliest memories is there was a program every summer for kids who weren't in school that the library would put on, and our local librarian would read to us and put on various skits and things like that. And one day she started reading a Hardy Boys book to us. And I was just riveted. I absolutely loved it. I was in about second grade. And over the course of a few sessions, she read the entire book to us. And then after that, I rented a few books from the series, read those in a couple days. And just throughout the summer, that's all I did was just constantly rented more Hardy Boys books, read them, returned them, and it just kept going on. I read the entire series that summer. It's like 50-some books, and that, for me was kind of like when I fell in love with reading the first time. I think most people who read a lot can kind of pinpoint that one book or that series of books that really influenced them and really played a big part in their lives. And for me, it was those Hardy Boys books. I just absolutely loved them. And, chances are I might not have even discovered them had it not been for my local library. So I really do, appreciate all that you guys do. And even to this day, I spend a lot of time at the New York Public Library. It's where I wrote a lot of the book. It's funny, before I moved here, kind of the image I had of New York was like the little coffee house on Friends, the TV show. It's like this nice little quiet, quaint coffee house where there's always seating. And it took about a week to find out that places like that don't exist out here. That's probably like the most unrealistic part of the show. So I wrote a ton of the book in various branches of the New York Public Library. So it was definitely a godsend to have a nice little quiet place to go to get a lot of work done. And that kind of brings me to the book. Wanted to talk about that for a little bit. As Danielle mentioned, it's a thriller. It's a debut, and she kind of covered the plot, but I'll go into a bit more detail. So there's a couple, Gary and Beth Foster, and they basically have a great life. They're madly in love. They've been married for almost 20 years. They're expecting their first child. And then all of a sudden, right at the start of the book, Beth collapses. She's rushed to the hospital, and they find out she has a brain tumor, and they give her 6 to 9 months to live. And so it's obviously very, very devastating news. They try conventional treatment, and it has no effect. And her condition continues to get worse and worse. And then they learn about this procedure abroad in Germany that might be able to help her. It's a newer experimental treatment, but the cost is $200,000, and that's way out of their price range. They don't have anywhere near that. None of their friends do, but they still do everything they can to raise the money. And they just have no luck at all. And then right when everything basically appears hopeless, a man approaches Gary, and he tells him, well, I'll give you all $200,000. I'll give you the money to save your wife. You just have to murder this person for me. And he gives him the name of someone. He says, I'll call in 3 days for your answer. And he walks away. And so that's kind of the setup for the book and what happens right at the start. And don't want to go into too much more detail and ruin all the surprises. But I did want to just talk about a few aspects of the book that I like. The one thing I really, really like is just kind of the moral dilemma that's at the heart of the book, which is just this idea of whether there's ever any situation where murder might actually be okay and be justifiable. And it's a real struggle for Gary after he's presented with the offer. It's a real struggle for him to kind of decide what he's going to do. It's kind of like the old scene you see where there's a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other, and they bicker back and forth. That's kind of what goes on in his head as he's thinking about this offer and thinking about what he's going to do. And I had a lot of fun writing those parts. Those are some of my favorite parts to write. Another thing I really, really like is just the character of Gary Foster, who's the main character of the book. He's just kind of a normal guy. There's nothing really spectacular or special about him, and I kind of like that. He's not some, international spy like James Bond or Jack Reacher. He's not some police detective like Alex Cross or D.D. Warren or Harry Bosch or any of those people. He's just a normal guy with a normal job, normal life, who just kind of had a bit of bad luck, and he might lose the only woman he's ever loved, and now he's presented with this amazing offer to potentially save her. And I just kind of like the fact that he's sort of a normal, relatable character. And then lastly, one thing I really like about the book is just the pacing. I have a really, really short attention span, especially when reading and writing. So I just tried to make it as fast-paced as I could. Anytime I was writing and I was starting to get bored by a part, I tried to end that part and as quickly as I could to get back to the action and all the fun stuff. And I know a few of the readers who've read the book so far have commented that they really, really like the pacing, so that's always a good thing. So to wrap up, I did just want to thank everyone here at Penguin Random House for putting this on. It was a real honor to be included. Thank you all for coming. And now it's the time everyone's been waiting for. Speech is over and it's time to eat. So thank you.